sins and our shortcomings, and be with our loved ones that aren't able to be here. These things we ask in your name.
You may be seated. Turn to page 84. Page 84. Page number 84. Y'all ready? I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one that's silver lined. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Though often tempted, tormented and tested, and like the prophet, my pillow a stone. And though I find here no permanent dwelling, I know He'll give me a mansion my own. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of that city. I want a mansion, a harp and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. I didn't get songs picked out this morning. 124. 124. Still have some coming up from Sunday school. I want to invite you to Sunday school. We have started Sunday school back 10 o'clock. We have 3 classes going at the moment. We'd love to have you. If you're in young adult age group, we'd love to have you downstairs. We're studying through the Bible. We'd love to have you be part of that. Page 124. Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? When the bridegroom cometh, will your robes be white? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Will your soul be ready for the mansions bright, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? All right, 271. Let's do one more. $271. There's a call come ringing o'er the restless waves. Send the light, send the light. There are souls to rescue, there are souls to save. Send the light, send the light, send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine forevermore. We have heard the Macedonian call today. Send the light, send the light. And a golden offering at the cross we lay. Send the light, send the light. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine forevermore. Verse 4. Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Send the light, send the light. Let us gather jewels for a crown above. Send the light, send the light, send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine forevermore. All right, Miss Samantha, you all ready with the kids? lesson today about two brothers that were disciples. Their names were James and John. Say it with me. James and John. And they're brothers, right? And are they disciples? What is a disciple? A disciple is somebody that followed Jesus. So what's the brothers' names? James. And they're going to ask Jesus a real important question. So we're going to talk about that question today, okay?
Here you go. Get you a snack. Here, girl.
Every time I hear a piano play, I'm like, we've got a piano player. There's probably piano players all over the place in this room. You think? Dub, do you play the piano? No. That was a quick answer.
I took lessons 4.5 months.
I took lessons too, Dub, and I didn't get anything.
When I quit, I forgot every note, every note.
I think I'm with you. Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10 this morning. When I'm reading the Bible, I try to put myself in the story. Been to Israel twice, and I think because I've been there twice, I always try to put the lay of the land and how it was. If you ever get to go to Israel, what you're going to find is Jerusalem is uphill from everywhere. There's nothing that you go from Jerusalem up to. Jerusalem's it. It's the top of the hill, Mount Moriah, and that is as high as you can go. So anybody who was going to Jerusalem, they was always going up to Jerusalem. This day in our lesson was kind of an interesting day. Mark chapter 10, we're getting to the last trip that Jesus is going to make to Jerusalem. And on the way, Jesus began to talk to them about Him dying on the cross and raising from the dead. Had Jesus talked to the disciples before about that? You know, 3 different times in the book of Mark, I think 8th chapter, 9th chapter, and 10th chapter, Jesus talked to the disciples about Him dying, about Him rising from the grave, and about Him going back into heaven. And so this was a very common story. Now, let me ask you something. If you were with Jesus and He was talking about this horrible death, He's going to be dying, what would be on your mind? What would be on your mind? I've been thinking, when I was studying this week, and I was with Jesus, and He's walking this road with me, and He's telling me He's going to be dying this horrible death, this crucifixion death, what would have been on my mind? Exactly. I'm with Brother Greg. If this is going to happen to my leader, when is this going to happen to me? Now, that's why this story to me is so interesting. Go with me to Mark chapter 10. They just had this conversation about dying and about how He's going to die. We get to verse 32. And Jesus began to tell them all these things about how He's going to die and how they're going to spit upon Him. He tells them in verse 34, they shall mock Him and shall scourge Him, shall spit upon Him and shall kill Him, and the third day He shall rise again. Now that's the statement. That's the statement Jesus made to these guys. Verse 35, you've got to read this with me. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came unto Him, saying, Master, we would that Thou shouldest do for us whatsoever we should desire. So Jesus, this is the next statement. We know you're going to die. We know you're going to be crucified. We know you're going to be spit upon. But Jesus, would you grant us whatever we ask for? If you only got one wish, y'all know the story, what would you ask for? Jesus says, verse 36, and he said unto them, what would ye that I should do for you? Now, wait a minute. Don't read ahead. If Jesus looked at you and said, what do you want me to do for you? What can I do for you, Greg? What can I do for you, Cain? What can I do for you, Martha? What can I do for you, Steve? I don't even know if I could answer that quick. Where I'm at right now, I don't know if I could answer that quick. But these guys could. Watch this. They said unto him, grant unto us that we may sit, one on thy right hand and one on the left hand, in thy glory. They don't deny he's going to die. They don't deny that part. They know that when he dies, he's going to go back into heaven. He's going to be in glory. Lord, if you'd give us one thing. Jesus said, what can I do for you? Jesus said to them, what can I do for you? They said, Jesus, if you would, let one of us sit on your right hand and one of you on the left. What a question. When I was in Israel, I noticed this a lot. We didn't have Pharisees when I was over in Israel, but they were still rabbis. Rabbis are teachers. And all these teachers wore special headdresses and things around Jerusalem, and therefore you could recognize they were a teacher. But one thing we noticed, they always had a group of people with them that were their students. And we were taught this, that the one that followed closest to the right side would be the best student. And the one that followed closest to the left side would be the second best student. So I found myself for the next 7 to 10 days in Israel trying to see who was following these guys, because who was following these guys were these other guys, and some of those guys were better students than others. And you could tell by where they ranked up, where they walked. Well, Pharisees were much like that in the New Testament times. And these men, followers of Jesus, had grew up in that same era. And so they're saying, you're our teacher. Would it be okay, me or my brother here, if one could be on the right and one on the left? Now, I'll tell you something even better than this. In another gospel, they're leaving the upper room. He just washed their feet. And he hears them arguing among themselves. You know what the argument was, brother? Who's the greatest among us? Jesus is going to die on the cross, and they're worried among themselves, who's the greatest? I'm telling you all today, I'm afraid we have lost full sight of what we're supposed to be doing. If we're not careful, we have become these guys. We want to be on the right, and we want to be on the left. Do we live in a time in history where people talk about the greatest? You know, I kind of had it on my bucket list one day to go to Mount Rushmore. How many know what I'm talking about, Mount Rushmore? Supposedly the greatest leaders our country's ever had are engraved in stone. Who's here? Who's been there? There's some hands, a few. How many would like to see it? And I heard some craziness the last couple years about adding some faces to Mount Rushmore. I don't know if anybody in our lifetime deserves to be on there with the guys that's on there. I'm just being honest. But in our lifetime, we talk about greatest basketball players. Everybody my age will say, who's the greatest? Michael Jordan. Thank you, sister. But everybody in the younger generation will say, who? Say it. You're all moving your mouths. I don't even like to say that name. Now the debate goes on, but let me tell you something about Michael Jordan. If you go back and research this, you'll find this to be true. Michael Jordan hardly ever scored any points the first half of a game. He got his teammates playing with him. And they said about Michael Jordan, he could take the worst players and make a team. Now LeBron James is all about who? Give me the ball and I'll show you what I can do. And people argue and say, well, right there is how you become the greatest. See, all he's accomplished, see how many points he's scored. But according to Jesus, that's not how you determine who's the greatest. How many of you want to be the greatest in God's eyes? In God's eyes. I'm with you. So I got a lesson for you today. Let's learn what Jesus taught them this day. And I'll be honest with you, I learned something this week that I didn't even remember or probably had known about it but forgot it. But it's been good for me just to be reminded. So go with me to our story. Now we're in verse 37. We've done read it. They want to sit with Jesus on one hand and one on the other. Jesus responds to them, verse 38, and said unto them, you know not what you ask. Can you drink of the cup that I drink of? Now, is he talking about communion? He is not. He's talking about how he's going to suffer and die. Now, I want you to all watch this with me because it gets worse instead of better. Can you drink of the cup that I drink of and be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? He's not talking about being baptized in water. He's not talking about drinking from a cup. He's talking about this crucifixion and how he's not going to be just sprinkled a little bit, but he's going to be immersed in this persecution, in this death. He's going to be slaughtered like a lamb. And he said, are you capable of doing that with me? And their answer is, they said, what? Y'all read it. We can. Absolutely, Jesus. Come on. By the way, James was the first martyr. By the time you get to Acts chapter 12, James is martyred. And guess who's going to be the last one? John, book of Revelation. They said they could, but I don't think they knew what they were saying at the time. Y'all with me? Because they were wanting to be number one and number two. I even believe they were fighting among themselves who was going to be number one and number two. And I'll tell you a little heads up, if you read Matthew, they brought their mama involved in it. They got mama involved. And they had mama go talk to Jesus and ask him if it would be all right. You know nobody's going to argue with mama. Now, give us the lesson, Brother Steve, because I don't want to be like these guys. Verse 40, but to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it shall be given unto them for whom it is prepared. If you go on and read in Matthew, who did Jesus say had the power to give them to sit on the right and on the left? The Father. I was thinking about this coming up the road today while Dad's driving. A few days later, Dwight, somebody is going to be on his right hand and on his left. It's going to be two thieves. Wasn't Jesus as to choose, he said. He didn't pick them that day either, did he? See, this greatest thing is not in my power. And I should never be asking that. Let me ask you this question today, because I want to get you to thinking with me before you go on. How many of you feel like you're serving the Lord? I'm not going to look. I'm going to look this way because nobody is raising their hand. How many of you, and I'm not looking, feel like they're serving the Lord? I don't know if anything changed when I turned around. I don't know. Because y'all are thinking, aren't you? Let's read the rest of this lesson. And hopefully before you go home today, you'll know what it means to serve the Lord. Verse 41. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. I got a quick question for the rest of the crowd. Why were they angry at James and John? Were they angry because James and John was asking the question? Or were they angry because James and John beat them to the spot? Y'all debate that one over in your mind. I think we might be surprised. I don't really know how spiritual anybody was in this group. Go on with me. Verse 42. But Jesus called them to him and said unto them, You know that they which are counted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you. But whosoever shall be great among you shall be your minister. That's the terminology we use for a pastor, a minister, isn't it? Jesus says to these guys, in the Gentile world, or in the world in which we live, people with authority exercise authority over people who don't have authority, and people who don't have authority serve the people who have authority. You got an employer, you're an employee. Ta-da! That's life. But Jesus said, not Steve, but Jesus said, it's not going to be so among my kingdom. See, if we're not careful, we've lost the whole sight of what church is, the whole sight of what worship is. We've lost all sight of what we're supposed to be doing. And Jesus is trying to help this small group figure it out. He says in verse 43, But so shall it not be among you, but whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. And whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be what? Servant of all. Verse 45 to me is the hinge on everything. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give His life a ransom for many. All I think about every day of my life is serving the Lord, Brother Greg. I do. I think about serving the Lord, how He wants me to serve Him, where He wants me to serve Him. I pray weekly. I pray daily. Lord, where do you want me to serve you? What do you want me to do for you? And that seems to be my prayer all the time. But as I studied this lesson today, maybe I got reminded that's not how my prayer should be. Really, He taught me exactly what I should be doing. Does anybody know what I'm supposed to be doing? Do you know how to determine who is the greatest server of the Lord today? Do you know how to determine who's the greatest server of the Lord today? Do you all know how to determine who's the greatest server of the Lord today is? Who's doing the most to other people? Jesus is going to tell them, if you're going to serve me, you've got to serve Him. Oh, wait a minute. I just want to serve the Lord. Somebody said in class today, do you. Is that to say the phrase, do you? No. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus didn't say, you just go do you. Jesus said, do them. And do them. And do she. And do he. And do him. That's what Jesus said, when you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, Matthew 25, you have done it unto me. Can I ask you today, who is the greatest among us? Who wants to be the greatest? I think you're going to even lose that desire after a while. I don't think you're going to even want to be called the greatest. Now here's what I learned that I forgot. I want you to read this with me. Go to the book of Luke chapter 12. The book of Luke chapter 12. See if you remember this. Because I had totally forgot it. You know what Jesus did that day? He served them. Not only did He wash their feet, but the Bible said, and that's the only place it's mentioned in the Bible, that He became a ransom. Jesus, you know the greatest moment that Jesus ever served mankind was on the cross. He served us right there. What Jesus did, what's a ransom? In Belize, this is a very common name, ransom. Anybody know what a ransom is? A payment for something that's been held hostage. That's what let's just get to the technicalities. In Belize, they will kidnap Mennonites. The other countries will, because the Mennonites have a lot of money in our country. They'll kidnap a Mennonite and they will hold them for what? Ransom. Now, if you pay the ransom, what happens? You get your Mennonite back. Those Mennonites will collect money among their people. Every one of them so far has been paid and they've been ransomed. Every one of them that's ever been kidnapped, the ransom's been paid and they've been released. Now Jesus said He paid the ransom for us. He went to the cross. He died on the cross. He paid your ransom. You are free to go. But you got to accept that payment. Now watch what Luke says. Luke chapter number 12. I'd forgot this verse. Verse 37. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord when He cometh shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that He shall gird Himself and make them sit down to meat, and will come forth and what? I never thought about this, but I probably had and just forgot. When we get to heaven, the Lord's going to serve us, according to what I'm reading. All this time, I'm thinking about serving the Lord, and all this time, Dwight, He's thinking about serving Steve. He served me there, and He still wants to serve me. I don't even understand that. I'm just going to tell you all. I do not understand that. But that is a servant's heart. The psalmist David said it this way, Lord, create me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Can I tell you what I need more than ever, probably? I need a clean heart. I need to remember what God has called me to do. And maybe all of us today need to remember. See what God has called us to do, y'all ready? He's called us to serve. This should never come across your lips at church. Well, whose job is that? Come on, listen. The carpet is dirty. Well, whose job is that? Whose job? The blacktop needs swept. Whose job? Don't do that. Please don't do that. Every one of us here are here to serve each other. Well, I'm serving the Lord. The only way you're going to serve the Lord is serve each other. I'm just telling you as easy as I can tell you today. The only way you're going to serve the Lord is you got to serve each other. Well, I don't even like Greg Carell. I know, get over that. You're going to serve him anyway. This is the hardest lesson for us to get, but it's going to be the greatest lesson we'll ever get. I want you to know that I don't think James and John got it that day. I'm just going to be honest, Greg. I don't think they got it that day. But I'm going to tell you, I think they did get it. Let me read you something that John wrote later. 1 John chapter 3. I'm done. Just got to finish. That's always me, right? He's done. He just ain't finished. 1 John chapter 3. Verse 16. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because He laid down His life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for. I want that to be so about me. I want that to be said about me. He's willing to give Himself up for others. But I don't know. I can convince myself I've done some great things. You probably could too. You could probably start jotting them down in a book somewhere, what you've done and what you've accomplished. But I want you to know something today. Unless we're doing it for the Lord, for each other, we're not doing it for. It's not even making it count. It's not even getting counted. I always thought about laying up treasures in heaven. You ever think about that? Now I always thought I was in control, you know. I get to pick the things I want to lay up there. But realistically, when I'm serving others, I'm laying up treasures in heaven. Look what he said in chapter 4, 1 John 4. Same John. The same one that says, are you ready to die like me? Oh yeah, we're ready. The same one that wanted to know who the greatest, can I be on the right or left? The same one, I think, figured it out. Verse 11, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. I can tell you right now, in the country in which I'm living, there's not a lot of love. Actually, there's probably a lot of hate. And if we're not careful, we make it us and them. Come on, y'all know I'm honest. If nothing else, Brother Steve's honest. We make it us and them. But I want to remind you, you've never been part of this world anyway. Maybe we need to start thinking more about Abraham a little bit more. God told us that this world is not our home. Jesus lived like that. He didn't even get involved in the politics of his day. Did he? Much? Now he paid his taxes. Reached in the fish's mouth and paid it. I'm going to try that. But I want you to know today, we, as God's people, have got to be the first ones to show love to this world. We. I'm just waiting on them. Y'all got somebody you've been mad at for a while, you're just waiting on them? Well, make today the day you don't wait on them anymore. That's why Jesus said, if somebody's got aught against you, wait a minute. Yeah, I know. They have no right. I know. He said, you go up here and ask God to forgive you. Before you do, you go just ask Cain to forgive you. Yeah, but I know you didn't. It's not about what you did or didn't do. It's about you humbling yourself and serve. Whew, I'm glad this is over. Amen, Brother Steve. I am too. I tell you today, this church thing, we've got it. If we'll let God do it. It's going to start right here among this group right here. Yeah, but I know what about, I know. But here's what he said. Serve one another here. Love them here. Work your way down the list or up the list, however you see it. Jesus said, when you've done it to the least of these, you want to serve Jesus? Start making you a list of who you need to go, and what you need to say, what you can do, how you can help. Serve them. Isn't this just an uplifting message? See, I'm reading that this week, and I'm James and John walking down the road. Jesus, I know you're going to die and everything, and hate it and all, but when we get on up to the kingdom, can I have one side? I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to be like Him, who's willing to serve. Are you willing to serve each other? Because I'm not going to ask you if you're willing to serve the Lord, because that's not the question on the table, is it? Are you willing to serve each other? Because that's what Jesus asked us to do. Let's stand and pray. I don't even know how to do invitation today, so we're going to do it this way. We're going to bow our heads and close our eyes. I'm going to pray with you. There's no music. But if you have a need today, maybe a prayer, maybe you just want to go somewhere to the altar by yourself and pray, do that this morning. Maybe you want to get somebody and say, go pray with me. But you want God to open your eyes to who needs to be served. And you want to be willing to serve them. Whoever God opens your eyes to. Let me ask you this today, no one looking. How many of you really need more of a servant's heart? I got mine with you. We're going to pray for each other this morning. Father, thank you today for Jesus who paid the price that I could have eternal life. Lord, I even realized that his payment on the cross was serving me. He made that statement in Mark 10:45. Lord, I pray that you would develop more of a servant's heart in me than you ever have. Lord, I could get my eyes off myself and off the things of this world for a moment and focus on your people and those who need Jesus. And be willing to serve like you were. You told us many times the servant's not greater than the master. Lord, I pray right now that you will help us as we go further in this week, that we might serve each other. Lord, I pray for the invitation today. There could be somebody in this building who's never gave their life to you. You gave your life for them, but they've never accepted that. And by accepting that, they say, Lord, I give my life to you now. Lord, I pray that maybe someone in this building will do that today. Have your way in this invitation in Jesus' name. Every head bowed, every eye closed. While you're praying today, maybe it's you that God's talking